This is Breaking the News Plus on this Wednesday night. I'm Jana. We have a serious discussion tonight with an investigative reporter from the Star Tribune about allegations of hazing that are graphic at Rogers High School with the junior varsity boys basketball team. Joining us now, Jeffrey Meitrodt from the Star Tribune investigative team. Jeffrey, thank you.
You bet.
So tell us what you know.
So 2 weeks ago, Friday, February 27th, the junior varsity basketball team from Rogers High School was on their way back from the game in Moorhead, and a group of 10th grade boys back of the bus and targeted at least 3, if not 4, of the 9th graders who were on the team. I'm told the smaller and weaker members of the team, and engaged in a hazing incident. Some of the kids had their pants taken off, and at least one of the kids, we were told, was possibly sexually abused.
Oh my gosh. Obviously, this is serious. This involves not just
very disturbing.
The families of these kids, the district, probably police. Is there a criminal investigation going on?
There is, and that's very unusual in a situation like this. Hazing incidents are typically handled internally by the school districts. They result in discipline. They don't result in criminal charges. So I thought that was quite noteworthy. It's being handled primarily by the sheriffs in Douglas and Wilkin counties, where the bus was traveling. But the police in Rogers had actually made the criminal referral. Where at least one of the parents came to them and asked them to investigate.
And for folks at home, you're an investigative reporter with the Star Tribune. How do you first find out about this? This is not something that a school district would call you and tell you about. No, in fact, they were very loath to discuss any of this. And I think that's one who reached out to me last week to tell me about the incident. At that time, it looked like, in the words of some of my sources, and sweeping this under the rug, they had time disciplined 2 of the 6 students that may have been involved in this. And the other 4 got some very brief suspensions. And then as I started asking questions and including one of the alleged attackers happens to work for the Rogers High School, which is, I'm sure, how the word of our investigation made its way to the principal. They took further action and, as I understand it, expelled the other 4 kids on Monday. So the students that allegedly perpetrated this incident that's being accused have been expelled from school?
All 6 of them at this point. That's what the parents are telling me. That's what their kids are reporting to them. No official information on this coming from the district or from the school itself. The only communication that came up was a no that the athletic director had sent out on March 2nd after some parents came forward, alerting them that something unusual and possibly very troubling had happened on the bus, and just letting them know, hey, we might and your children about what happened, which clearly is what's been going on for the last couple of weeks.
I can imagine. I've covered things like this before with your colleagues. Proctor comes to mind. There was an incident in Proctor, which is in northern Minnesota several years ago. Similar types of allegations. But in smaller communities, this can rip a community apart.
Yeah, absolutely. And often school districts are very reluctant to take action. Hazing is often treated as sort of a rite of passage. The kids up. I'm sure anybody who's played high school sports in this state either is aware of an incident or was hazed themselves. I know it was very common when I was growing up in southeastern Minnesota. Boy, when you got to be on that football team in 10th grade, those seniors were tough on you. And, I wore the bruises. So, I think that's the kind of thing that, this whole boys will be boys sort of mentality is still very much out there. And I don't think the educators are really anxious to crack the whip when stuff like this happens.
Yeah, when it gets to this level, I mean, I was too. I'm 48 years old, girls basketball team. We just had to carry everybody's shoes and bags. And we're talking about things like possible sexual assault or humiliation by taking a kid's pants. Like, that is behavior that could stay with someone who was allegedly did that their entire life.
Yeah, it could be very traumatizing. I really feel for the children involved here. Really horrific situation. And you know that even if the district is not talking about this, kids are probably pointing fingers, and they know who and who the perpetrators were. And so it's a very uncomfortable situation, I think, for everybody involved.
Absolutely. All the parents and family, too. The other difference that you and I both know is that these days, kids often take videos of everything. Have you been told of any videos taken of this incident?
Yeah, and I think that may have been also one of the things that sort of turned the tide in this. Eventually, those videos had not made its way to the school, but at some point, they did get, apparently, they saw at least one of these videos, which I'm told one of the perpetrators had recorded on their phone. Maybe they thought they were going to share it, or they thought it was funny. Maybe they didn't know how bad things were going to get, and they captured, I don't know how much of the incident itself, but that seemed to be one of the triggering events. Until that point, a lot of the parents told me that the school district wasn't really going to do much of anything, but the video was really something that they couldn't ignore.
And have you heard from the parents that you've been able to speak to, Jeffrey, through your reporting? It's a school bus, I get it. Did any coach or teacher, were they on the bus too? Did they turn a blind eye, just not hear it? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I was told there were 3 coaches of the JV team who were on the bus at the time. I was told that at least one of the 10th graders who was not involved in the incident told the coaches that something wrong was going on at the back of the bus, and they should do something about it. Parents told me that at least one of the coaches went back once, if not more than once, and told the kids to knock it off. It's not clear what, if anything, that coach may have seen or what they did afterwards, but to a lot of parents, it's clear that the coaches didn't do enough, which may be why they were.
Why the parents were starting to get frustrated, because folks should know at home, once people reach out to the media, that's certainly not typically their first recourse, especially with things like this. Folks typically go to the school, they go to the principal, then they go to the board, and perhaps that's why it took a couple of weeks for it to get to you. Or are you hearing anything like that?
Very much. I think people were just expecting that the district was going to take quick action, and when that didn't happen, that frustration mounted, and eventually they reached out to.
Right, and then once this hits, your story came out this morning in the Star Tribune at 6 o'clock. You broke this story, and at last check, our news outlet, every other news outlet, and I can expect possibly national outlets will start reporting on this, because it's 2026. Like, people may have experienced hazing in 1995, but that's just not the world we live in anymore. And as I understand it, Rogers has a strict no hazing policy.
Absolutely, and the policy allows for expulsion of a student, which seems to be what they now have done in this case. My reporting shows that this is not the first time that the school districts had to contend with hazing. There was another incident 15 years ago involving the Elk River High School football team, where I think it was 9 players and 6 coaches were disciplined following a hazing incident there. These don't happen all that frequently. At least they don't make the public eye all that frequently. But there is some data out there that we got from a nonprofit group in Indiana that studies this issue and has collected a lot of research. And they're saying the research indicates that every year, almost half of kids that end up playing college sports were hazed at some point during their high school career.
Lastly, Jeffrey, I'll ask you, because of the nature of this involving minors, and schools. It's so hard to often get information as reporters. The public often demands that you do, we do, but a lot of that stuff is protected because of them being minors in this involving a school district. But because it's taken this step to possible criminal investigation, what can we expect? I expect you'll stay on this story. Can we expect to hear more, or just time will tell?
Time's going to tell. We're going to see if there are ultimately any criminal charges filed here against any of these minors, and if those charges are ever made public. At the same time, we will look to see if any. It's hard to tell exactly, who did what wrong here at this point.
Well, it's a disturbing story, but an important one that we talk to our kids about. One that we discuss at home and in our schools, most definitely. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your reporting and for joining us on Breaking the News Plus tonight.
Thank you.
That's all for us with Breaking the News Plus. We'll see you back here next time. Take care.